The attack in Libya has raised serious questions about America's presence in the war-torn country.
Today, many Americans are asking, indeed, I asked myself, how could this happen? How could this happen in a country we helped liberate, in a city we helped save from destruction?
Right before the show, I spoke with Senator Dianne Feinstein, the chairwoman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I asked her about Secretary Clinton's comments and the investigation.
The Secretary of State is absolutely correct. You know, we have tried to help Libya in every way, shape, or form. And now our ambassador, who was somebody very skilled in the area, had been in Jerusalem and Cairo and a number of other places, and had helped in the transition, is murdered, as well as 3 other Americans. And this is unacceptable.
You were briefed today. Can you tell us of the latest that you know about what happened or who was responsible?
I think this is the investigation that's going on now. It isn't clear. And nobody quite knows. You know, Zawahiri has done a message urging revenge for the death of an al-Qaeda leader, and I think that was too soon to this event to have caused the event, but it may well be that
so you think it could be al-Qaeda?
I think it could be. I can't say it was, but it certainly could be. Their weapons were somewhat sophisticated. They blew a hole in the building. They started a big fire, and that's how the ambassador died, in the fire.
It would seem that if it's al-Qaeda, their hallmark would be to immediately claim responsibility. So does this make you think it could be some other group we don't know about?
It's very hard for me to think that regular Libyans would do this, people who, you know, wanted to be free, and we've helped that freedom be achieved, as the Secretary has so eloquently stated. It's very hard for me to think that. And the head of the National Assembly issued a very strong statement, I thought that was completely appropriate, saying that justice will be met, that they will find the perpetrators. I hope that's true. And I know we have 50 Marines on the way, so there will be a big investigation. I don't think we should let this one go.
Well, and when you say let this one go, I mean, the decision to intervene in Libya was bipartisan. I mean, that's fair to acknowledge. President Obama supported it, John McCain supported it, Mitt Romney supported it at the time. But now Americans see the U.S. ambassador's been murdered. 3 other Americans have been murdered. It just seems like the U.S. was really caught flat-footed in a situation where it appears now, looking at it, was already sort of a disaster.
Well, I don't think we were caught flat-footed. I think this was a premeditated attack, and it was carried out to do what it did. I have no doubt about that. I think what it's a symbol of is that there is a great deal of unrest in the 9 Muslim countries that were products of the Arab Spring. And I think nobody really knows which way things are going to go.
This summer, when we were in North Africa, we experienced just a little bit of the aftermath of what's happened in Libya. You know, Malians were telling us about RPGs and surface-to-air missiles that were from Libya now there. You know, the morning after we left a village on the border, a local called us to say al-Qaeda-linked affiliates were there in a pickup truck with machine guns launched on the back of it. Did the U.S. government really understand all the repercussions? I mean, that Gaddafi's cache of weapons could go missing, empowering al-Qaeda in northern Africa?
Well, I think we have to be prepared for some unforeseen events. There is no question that al-Qaeda hasn't gone away. I mean, we've made a real dent in al-Qaeda in terms of removing a good deal of its leadership. The problem is leaders are replaced. And as you said, they've gone to Mali, and you know a great deal about it. So terror is not going to end, as I see it, anytime soon.
Do you think, Senator, from your briefings and your understanding so far, or what do you think about the timing? I mean, obviously, this happened yesterday in Libya and the attack on the embassy in Cairo on September 11th. This video, though, that was either fully behind or partially behind what happened in Libya has been online on YouTube since July.
Well, it's a stupid video. It's inaccurate, it's provocative, and it's just plain stupid for an American to do that. Nonetheless, it was done. Now, I'm surprised that anybody saw it, but someone did, and use that as a point of organization to really institute an attack. I mean, this wasn't a lonely person attacking. This was a group of 20. They were well armed. They knew what they were doing. So I have to assume they were fighters of some kind, and they certainly weren't on our side, that's for sure. And they did tremendous damage, and I think we have to see that and do something about it and catch them and put them to justice. And hopefully Libya and the new government will be in the forefront of doing just that.
All right. Senator Feinstein, thanks as always. Good to see you, ma'am.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Erin.
All right, and now to the political fallout from the deadly attack in Libya and the attacks which are continuing in Cairo tonight. Sadly, it took this tragedy to put the foreign policy debate front and center of this election. And it is a debate that has quickly turned nasty.
The administration was wrong to stand by a statement sympathizing with those who had breached our embassy in Egypt, instead of condemning their actions. It's never too early for the United States government to condemn attacks on Americans and to defend our values.
President Obama then hit back late this afternoon on CBS News.
Governor Romney seems to have a tendency to shoot first, name later. And as president, one of the things I've learned is you can't do that. It's important for you to make sure that the statements that you make are backed up by the facts and that you've thought through the ramifications before you make them.
Have both sides made mistakes with regards to Libya? And does this foreign policy debate benefit one or the other? Former NATO commander, retired General Wesley Clark, who is also a foreign policy expert for the Obama campaign, joins us now, along with the former U.S. Senator from Minnesota, Norm Coleman, a foreign policy advisor for the Romney campaign. Great to have both of you with us. Let me start with you, Senator Coleman, because what Mitt Romney was referring to there was a statement put out by the American Embassy in Cairo, talking essentially about the film that we were just reporting on, saying, condemning, quote, efforts by misguided individuals to hurt the religious feelings of Muslims. So essentially apologizing for that video. That statement was put out before the embassy was attacked. Now, they did stand by it after the embassy was attacked, but does that mean it's fair for Mitt Romney to say that it's disgraceful, I'm using his words, that the Obama administration's first response was not to condemn but to sympathize with those who waged the attacks?
Yes, because actually it was disgraceful, and the Obama administration didn't disavow that statement until after Governor Romney made his statement. So the bottom line is that when American property, when American embassies are being attacked under siege, the first response should not be to sympathize with the protesters. And it wasn't until Governor Romney stepped forward that the administration then responded. Again, mixed signals. And by the way, our enemies watch this. And the problem here is not about statements. It's a problem of lack of leadership. Things are a mess in the Middle East. And America, leading from behind, has really put us in a very difficult position. So that statement Governor Romney made was absolutely accurate. The Obama administration disassociated itself from the embassy statement only after Governor Romney acted. In a Romney administration, embassy officials will not make those statements under these circumstances.
General Clark, is there anything to that, or do you think, no, the Obama administration did the right thing? And the embassy, which, by the way, they say the ambassador wasn't even in Cairo at the time, didn't approve the message, even though they stood by it. And President Obama certainly didn't know they were putting anything like that out.
The embassy was just trying to defuse the crowd outside, and I think that's what we would want. It's not an authoritative statement of the United States of America. It's certainly not a statement of the Obama administration, and it wasn't after the embassy was attacked. It was in order to defuse the crowd. Furthermore, there was nothing in that statement that was apologizing for America or apologizing for American values. So I think it was just a tactical move by the embassy. It's been blown all out of proportion. And what it shows is that I think, I think it's important to have a foreign policy debate. And I think the American people welcome it. And if this is what it takes to get it started, fine. But in general, usually, the first reports are wrong.
Right.
And when you jump too soon to make statements, and especially a statement like Mr. Romney made in the middle of the night last night, just to get on the record with a statement, you generally end up regretting it the next day. And what I've seen from all the response is that the rest of the Republican Party is not behind it. They all recognize the most important thing about this is, first, the fact that we lost 4 diplomats there, including a very distinguished ambassador, and secondly, that this was a serious attack on the United States of America. It's our property over there. There's no excuse for it, and the Obama administration's condemned it in the strongest possible terms.
So, Senator Coleman, what is Mitt Romney going to do next here? Because to General Clark's point, you know, Indiana Republican Dan Coates, among others, have criticized Mitt Romney for this statement. Republican Dan Coates saying, and I'm quoting, making a knee-jerk or quick political response or knee-jerk policy response. You have to amend that before we jump to too many conclusions, referring to Mr. Romney's statement.
Again, the response of Governor Romney was very appropriate, and the fact is that there was no statement condemning the violence until after Governor Romney stepped forward. And the other part of it, and first of all, the most important thing here is the sadness of the loss of the murder of 4 Americans. That's first. That's primary, and our hearts go out to the families. Secondly, the issue that Governor Romney raised that people aren't talking about is the lack of leadership. That's what this is about. You asked Senator Feinstein in the earlier segment, were we caught flat-footed? The issue is not flat-footed in what happened at the embassy. The fact is that we were flat-footed in Egypt during, the transition from Mubarak. Joe Biden was calling him a champion of democracy until shortly before he left. Hillary Clinton called Assad in Syria a reformer about a year ago. Syria, we subcontract our Syrian policy to Kofi Annan, which has been an absolute failure. And so America, by leading from behind, has made the region a much tougher place. And if you're the Israeli prime minister, you think that you should be a little concerned about whether America is going to stand with you when you're facing the threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon?
General Clark, a final word to you, though. You were cautious on this. You wrote an op-ed before the U.S. intervened, NATO intervened in Libya, saying, be careful. It's going to be your problem. I mean, in a sense, it's a miracle this hasn't happened yet. I mean, you were the one cautioning the Obama administration to not do this in the way they did.
First, I was cautioning Fuad Ajami and Paul Wolfowitz and the neocons not to rush in there. Just like I'm cautioning right now those in the Republican Party who are so eager to push the United States into Syria. I think the president's shown extremely good leadership in this matter. He got the allies to do everything they could do in Libya. It hasn't worked out quite as smoothly. We knew it wouldn't, but it was better than standing by and watching Gaddafi slaughter people. Mubarak and Assad worked with the Bush administration extensively. And so to say that President Obama doesn't have leadership because of these men is crazy. They've been in power for years and years, and Bush's father, George H. Bush, worked with them. So there's nothing new about the fact that Mubarak and Assad dealt with Americans there. If the Republican Party wants to get a grip on foreign policy and enter this election fray, it should propose some policies, not just snipe at from the sidelines.
All right. Well, thanks very much to both of you. And obviously working with dictators is something both parties have been guilty of over many administrations. Thanks to both of you. We appreciate it. And, of course, as you now know, tragically, 4 Americans, including the U.S. ambassador to Libya, lost their lives during that violent attack last night on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. Next, colleagues and friends remember what truly was a remarkable man. We'll talk about the ambassador.